In the quiet streets of an ancient town, where the buildings lean like old men sharing secrets, one wrong turn can make you vanish forever. John was a simple man. He worked in an office all day, typing on a computer. He lived in a small apartment with his cat. One day, he decided to take a trip. He wanted to see something new. He heard about an old city far away. It was called Eldridge. People said it was very old, with buildings from hundreds of years ago. John thought it would be nice to walk around and take pictures. He drove his car for many hours. The road was long and straight. Trees lined the sides, but they looked dead. No leaves, just branches like thin arms reaching out. The sky was gray, always gray. John listened to the radio, but it kept cutting out. Static filled the air. He turned it off. When he got to Eldridge, the sun was setting. The city looked empty. Streets were made of stone, worn down by time. Houses had windows like dark eyes watching him. No people walked around. No cars on the road. John parked his car near a big square. There was a fountain in the middle, but no water came out, just dry stone. He got out and stretched his legs. The air felt cold, even though it was summer. He walked down a narrow street. His footsteps echoed loud. He saw a sign for a hotel. It said Old Inn. The door was open a little. He pushed it and went inside. It was dim. A man sat behind a desk. He was old, with white hair and wrinkles. "Room for the night?" the man asked. His voice was soft, like a whisper. "Yes," John said. "Just one night." The man gave him a key. "Room 7. John went up the stairs. They creaked under his feet. The room was small. A bed, a chair, a window. He looked out. The street below was dark now. Night had come fast. He lay down to sleep, but he heard sounds, soft, scratches on the walls, like nails scraping. He told himself it was just the wind, or maybe rats. He closed his eyes. In the middle of the night, he woke up. There was a knock on the door, soft, but clear. Knock, knock. He sat up. Who was there? No answer. He got up and opened the door. The hallway was empty, just shadows. He went back to bed, but now he felt watched, like eyes on him from the dark corners. That was the start. John did not know it yet, but the old city had secrets, dangerous ones, things that hid in the stones and waited. John woke up early. The room was cold. He checked his phone, no signal. The scratching sounds from last night were gone, but the air felt heavy. He packed his bag and left the room. The hallway was quiet, the old and empty. The man at the desk was gone. John left the key on the counter and stepped outside. The morning was gray. The sky looked like it might rain, but no drops fell. Eldridge's streets were narrow, twisting like a maze. John walked, his camera hanging around his neck. He wanted to take pictures of the old buildings. They were made of dark stone, with cracks running through them like veins. Some had carving strange shapes, like faces with no eyes. He passed a small shop with a sign that said goods. The window was dusty, but he could see shelves inside. He went in. A bell above the door jingled. An old woman stood behind the counter. She was thin, with gray hair tied tight. Her eyes were pale, almost white. "Looking for something?" she asked. Her voice was sharp, like a knife. "Just looking," John said. He glanced at the shelves. There were jars with no labels, filled with dark liquid. Some had things floating inside, hard to see what. He felt uneasy. "Don't stay out after dark," the woman said suddenly. She wasn't looking at him. She was staring at the window. "The city doesn't like strangers at night." John nodded, unsure what to say. He left the shop. The bell jingled again, loudened. The silence. He walked more. The streets felt alive, but not in a good way. He saw a man sweeping a doorstep. The man's hands moved slow, like he was half asleep. John said hello. The man didn't look up, just kept sweeping. John noticed the broom wasn't touching the ground. It floated an inch above. He shook his head. His eyes were playing tricks. He kept walking. At the end of a street, he found a church. It was tall, with a tower that leaned slightly. The door was open. He went inside. The air smelled of damp stone. Pews were empty, covered in dust. There was a statue at the front, a figure in a robe, but its face was smooth, no features. John took a picture. The flash lit up the room for a second. He thought he saw something move in the shadows. Just a flicker. He checked, but nothing was there. Outside, he saw a woman walking. She carried a basket, her head down. "Excuse me." John called. She stopped, but didn't turn. "Is there a place to eat around here?" She pointed down the street without looking at him. "The diner," she said. Her voice was flat. She walked away fast. John found the diner. It was small, with cracked windows. Inside, a few people sat at tables. They didn't talk. They just ate, staring at their plates. John sat at the counter. A waitress came over. She was young, but her face looked tired. "What do you want?" she asked. "Just coffee," John said. She poured it and walked away. The coffee was cold. He sipped it anyway. He looked around. The other people in the diner were still. One man held a spoon in the air, not moving. John's skin prickled. He left money on the counter and went outside. The streets were emptier now. He heard whispers, faint, like voices carried on the wind. But there was no wind. He looked around. No one was there. Just the stones, the buildings, the gray sky. John didn't feel right. Something was off about Eldridge. He wanted to leave, but his car was far, and he didn't know the way back through the maze of streets. He kept walking, hoping to find the square where he parked. John walked for hours. The streets of Eldridge twisted and turned, looping back on themselves. He couldn't find the square where he parked his car. Every corner looked the same: dark stone buildings, cracked windows, and shadows that seemed to move when he wasn't looking. His phone was useless, the screen showing no bars. The air grew colder, and the gray sky pressed down like a heavy blanket. He stopped to catch his breath. His heart was beating fast, not from walking but from something else. The whispers were back, soft, like voices just out of reach. He couldn't make out words, only murmurs. They came from the walls, the ground, the air. He turned, expecting to see someone, but the street was empty. Ahead, he saw a building different from the others. It was bigger, with tall windows and a heavy wooden door. A faded sign above read Eldridge Library. John felt a spark of hope. Maybe there was a map inside, or someone who could help him find his way. He pushed the door open. It creaked loud. In the silence, inside, the air smelled of old paper and dust. Shelves stretched to the ceiling, filled with books. The floor was wood, worn smooth by years of footsteps. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling, flickering. No one was there. John walked deeper into the library. The shelves were packed with books, but the titles were strange. Words he didn't understand, written in letters that looked wrong. Some books had no titles at all, just blank covers. He reached for one, but it felt cold, like touching ice. He pulled his hand back. At the back of the room, he found a table. On it was a single book, open to a page with a drawing. It showed a city, Eldridge. He was sure. The streets were drawn in black ink, twisting like a spider web. In the center was a shape, like a person, but not quite. Its edges were blurry, like it was moving even in the drawing. Words were written below it, but they were smudged, unreadable. The whispers got louder. John looked around. The light bulb flickered faster, casting shadows that danced on the walls. He thought he saw a shape. In the corner, a figure, tall and thin, standing still. He blinked, and it was gone. Just a trick of the light, he told himself. He flipped through the book. Pages were filled with more drawings, people with no faces, buildings that seemed to lean inward, and symbols that hurt his eyes to look at. One page had a single sentence. The city keeps what it takes. John's stomach turned. He closed the book. Footsteps echoed behind him. Slow, deliberate, he turned. But no one was there. The footsteps stopped. He called out, "Hello?" His voice bounced off the walls, sounding small. No answer. The whispers started again, louder now, like a crowd talking just out of sight. John grabbed the book and stuffed it into his bag. He didn't know why, but he felt like he needed it. He hurried toward the door. The light bulb went out, plunging the library into darkness. He fumbled for his phone, using its light to find the way. The beam caught something, a shadow on the wall, tall and thin, with no face. It moved toward him. He ran. The door was heavy, but he pushed it open and stumbled into the street. The gray sky was darker now, almost night. The whispers followed him, louder, angrier. He ran down the street, not caring where he went. The buildings seemed to lean closer, their windows like eyes. He stopped at a corner, out of breath. The whispers were quieter now, but still there. He looked at his bag, where the book was. His hands shook. He didn't know what was happening, but Eldridge wasn't just an old city. It was alive, and it didn't want him to leave. John's legs ached as he ran through Eldridge. The streets seemed to twist, leading him in circles. He was sure he passed the same cracked fountain twice, but the buildings around it looked different each time. His car was nowhere in sight. The square where he parked was gone, like it had never existed. His breath came in short gasps, and the cold air stung his lungs. The whispers were louder now. They weren't just murmurs anymore. Words formed, faint but clear. Stay. They said, "You belong." John shook his head, trying to block them out. He clutched his bag, the book inside feeling heavier than it should. He didn't dare look at it now. He turned a corner and saw a man standing under a street lamp. The light was dim, flickering like the one in the library. The man was old, wearing a long coat that hung loose on his thin frame. His face was half hidden, in shadow, but his eyes glinted, watching John. "Hey," John called, his voice shaky. "Can you help me? I'm trying to find the square. My car's there." The man didn't move. He tilted his head, like he was listening to something John couldn't hear. "You shouldn't have taken it," he said. His voice was low, like gravel. "Taken what?" John asked, gripping his bag tighter. The man pointed at the bag. "The book. It's not yours. The city doesn't like thieves." John's heart sank. "I just want to leave," he said. "Tell me how to get to the square." The man smiled, but it wasn't kind. His teeth were too sharp. "Too many. The city decides who leaves," he said. He turned and walked into an alley, disappearing into the dark. John stood frozen. The whispers grew louder, saying his name now. "John, John." He ran again, picking a street at random. The buildings seemed to shift, their walls leaning closer, windows glinting like they were watching. He tripped on a loose stone and fell, scraping his hands. Blood dripped onto the ground, and the stone seemed to soak it up, leaving no trace. He got up and kept going. He reached a small courtyard with a well in the center. The well was old, its stones covered in moss. He leaned over, hoping to see water, something normal. But the well was dry, and at the bottom, he saw something move, a shape, like the one in the book, blurry, not quite human. It looked up at him, and he stumbled back, his heart pounding. The whispers were everywhere now, a chorus of voices. "Stay. You belong." "John." He covered his ears, but it didn't help. The sound was inside his head. He pulled the book from his bag, thinking he should throw it away, leave it behind. But when he opened it, the pages were blank, every drawing, every word gone, except for one line, written in red ink. "The city sees you." John dropped the book. It hit the ground with a thud, and the whispers stopped for a moment. Silence pressed in, heavy and thick. Then the book opened on its own, pages flipping fast. A drawing appeared, a sketch of John standing in the courtyard, looking down at the well. It was him, right now. He backed away, his eyes wide. The drawing moved, the sketch John turned, like it was looking at him. The whispers started again, louder, angrier. "You can't leave." John ran, leaving the book behind. The courtyard vanished behind him, replaced by another street. He didn't know where he was going anymore. The city was playing with him, moving its streets, trapping him. He saw lights in the distance, faint and yellow. Maybe a way out. Maybe his car. He ran toward them, hoping. But deep down, he knew Eldridge wasn't done with him. John's lungs burned as he ran toward the yellow lights. They flickered in the distance, like candles in the dark. The streets of Eldridge stretched on, twisting and narrowing. But the lights gave him hope. Maybe it was a way out, a road, or even his car. He didn't stop to think. He just ran, his shoes slapping against the uneven stones. The whispers followed, weaving through the air. "John, stay. You're ours." The voices were clearer now, not just one but many, overlapping like a crowd speaking at once. He tried to ignore them, focusing on the lights. They were closer now, glowing from a building at the end of a street. He slowed as he reached it. It wasn't a road or a square. It was a house, old and sagging, with boarded up windows. The lights came from inside, leaking through cracks in the boards. The door was slightly open, a sliver of yellow light spilling onto the street. John hesitated. The whispers grew quieter, but they didn't stop. "Go in," they said. See, he didn't want to go inside. Every part of him screamed to turn back, but the cold air pushed at his back, and the street behind him seemed darker, like the city was hurting him. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, pushing the door open. The house smelled of mildew and something sharp, like rust. The light came from a single lamp on a table in the center of the room. The room was bare except for that table and a few chairs. They were cracked and gray. On the table, next to the lamp, was a pile of objects: keys, wallets, watches, a phone. John's stomach dropped. His keys were there, the ones for his car. He reached for them, but his hand froze. The phone next to them was his, too. He'd left it in his bag, hadn't he? He checked his bag. His phone was gone. So were his keys. He looked back at the table, his heart racing. The whispers started again, soft and close. "You left them. You left yourself." John backed away from the table. The lamp flickered, casting shadows that moved on the walls. They weren't his shadows. They were tall, thin, with no faces, just like the drawing in the book. He turned to the door, but it was closed now. He hadn't heard it shut. Footsteps creaked upstairs, slow, heavy, like someone walking across the floor. John froze. His breath caught in his throat. The whispers grew louder, chanting his name. "John, John, you belong." He grabbed his keys and phone from the table, stuffing them into his pocket. The lamp went out, plunging the room into darkness. He fumbled for his phone's light, but it wouldn't turn on. The screen was black, dead. The footsteps upstairs stopped. Silence filled the house, thick and heavy. Then, a voice, not a whisper, but a real voice, came from the dark. "You shouldn't be here," it said. It was low, rough, and close. John spun around, seeing nothing but shadows. "Who's there?" he called. No answer. The air felt tighter, like the walls were closing in. He ran to the door and pulled at it. It wouldn't budge. He kicked it, pounded it, but it held fast. A laugh came from behind him, soft and cold. He turned, and in the faint light from the cracks in the windows, he saw a figure. It was tall, its head brushing the ceiling. Its face was blank, just smooth skin where eyes and a mouth should be. It stood still, but the air around, it seemed to ripple, like heat off pavement. John screamed and threw himself at the door again. This time, it gave way, and he stumbled into the street. The house was dark now, no lights at all. He ran, not looking back. The whispers followed, louder, angrier. You can't run. You're ours. He didn't know where he was going. The streets twisted again, leading him deeper into Eldridge. The buildings loomed taller, their windows black and empty. His phone was useless, his keys meaningless without his car. The city was closing in, and the whispers were inside him now, filling his head with words he didn't want to hear. John ran until his legs gave out. The streets of Eldridge blurred around him, a maze of stone and shadow. The whispers were deafening. Now, a chorus of voices screaming inside his skull. John, stay, forever. His keys and phone were heavy in his pocket, useless. The city had swallowed his car, his way out, everything. The buildings loomed closer, their windows dark, reflecting nothing. He stumbled into a familiar place, the square with a dry fountain. It was the same one he'd seen when he arrived, but it felt wrong now. The fountain stone was cracked deeper, like it had aged years in a day. The air was thick, hard to breathe. The whispers pulsed, coming from the ground itself. John's eyes darted around. The square was empty, but he felt watched. Shadows moved in the corners of his vision, tall and thin, with no faces. He turned, trying to catch them, but they vanished. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone. The screen flickered, showing not his home screen, but a grainy image of the square. With him standing in it, the image moved as he moved, like a live feed. But no one was filming. The whispers formed new words. Look down. John's heart pounded. He didn't want to, but his eyes drifted to the fountain. The dry basin was no longer empty. It was filled with a dark, thick liquid, like oil. It rippled, though there was no wind. A shape rose from it, tall, faceless, its body shimmering like the air around it was breaking apart. It reached out with long, thin arms. John backed away, tripping over a stone. He fell hard, his keys falling from his pocket. The shape moved, closer, silent but heavy, like it carried the weight of the city. More shapes appeared, stepping out from the shadows of the buildings. They surrounded the square, faceless and still, watching him. You took from us, the whispers said, all at once. You belong to us now. John scrambled to his feet, grabbing his keys. He ran toward a street. Any street, but the shapes were there, blocking every path. The air grew colder, tighter, like it was squeezing him. He turned back to the fountain. The first shape was closer now, its smooth face inches from his. He couldn't scream. His voice was gone. He remembered the book's words. The city keeps what it takes. Eldridge wasn't just a place. It was alive, hungry, and it wanted him. The shapes closed in, their fingers brushing his skin. Cold as stone, the whispers filled his mind, drowning out his thoughts. Stay, stay, stay. John's vision blurred. The square, the shapes, the fountain, they faded into gray. He felt himself sinking, not into the ground, but into something deeper, like the city was pulling him inside itself. His last thought was of his car, his apartment, his cat, then nothing. The next morning, Eldridge was quiet. The fountain was dry again, the square empty. A new car parked nearby, and a woman stepped out, her camera around her neck. She walked down a narrow street, unaware of the whispers starting to rise from the stones. The city was waiting.